eighth wonder of the world, basically a geek show. And here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 43, I got the number right, of Basically a Geek Show.
About bloody time.
You get into like these, like, I know the milestones, like 30, 40, but then, you know, the morass in the middle is all just sort of bleh.
You hear that, everyone? To Mike, only every 10 shows matters to him.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just phoning it in until 50.
Fair enough. How will we know the difference?
See, that's the thing. You won't. That's the brilliant. That's
your commitment to mediocrity.
Yes, it is.
Fair enough.
Anyway, this is actually being recorded on a Monday. We usually record on Tuesday, but we have shit we want to talk about, yo.
And we were bored.
Indeed. All right, so let's get to it. Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens trailer has been released. Actually, it and then the parody special edition version have both been released, and I found that pretty funny. But let's get into the actual trailer. I'm gonna admit, I was not blown away by the name. I still kind of think Force Awakens is a stupid name.
You're a stupid name.
Well, yeah, maybe. But, this trailer, I got pretty psyched watching it. Not gonna lie. Got pretty psyched watching it. It's definitely a teaser. We really don't get much in the way, or anything in the way of characters or even major plot points. But, from what I saw, from what admittedly little there was, I'm excited going forward.
What is there to be excited about? I mean, what was in that? I watched this trailer. I mean, it was a random hodgepodge of scenes. I liked the long sword saber, you know, kind of had that kind of like broadsword look to it. That was pretty sweet.
I want to talk a bit about.
And it was nice to see the Millennium Falcon on the screen again, but it is a random hodgepodge of shit. I mean, what is there to give a fuck about?
Let's see. Okay, so first of all, on the lightsaber, I admit it looks cool, but something that on that lightsaber thing that did kind of make me raise an eyebrow is that the guard of the hilt, you know, it has little lightsaber hilts. That seems like it could potentially be dangerous in chopping off your own hand.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that, and I'm like, someone did, I mean, it looks badass as fuck, but someone didn't think this through very much, did they? Of course, I mean, since when has Hollywood ever given a rat's ass about, you know, practicality? And I guess we're just kind of, I don't know, splitting hairs when we're talking about the feasibility of fucking laser swords, but it is one of those things that just kind of like stands out to you when you see like, ooh, that's kind of like a running with scissors level of danger there.
Well, I think it boils
Which
down.
I do because I'm a rebel.
I think it comes down to, in episode, 1, you know, okay, so you had the original trilogy, right? And then episode 1, they introduced Darth Maul, and then they killed him in the same movie. But, with Darth Maul, the big thing in that first episode 1 trailer was Darth Maul with the double-bladed lightsaber. Mm-hmm. And I think they're kind of going something like that here, where they're like, well, we already did the double-bladed lightsaber, and I think they felt the need to give the bad guy, and this guy's a bad guy because his blade's red, and the bad guys have red, energy blades. But, the thinking, I think, was, well, we can't just give him a red lightsaber. We need to make it seem special somehow. And the double-bladed thing's already been done with Darth Maul, so they were like, hey, let's do this. And even if it really doesn't make much sense, cause, you know, you get a little bit too wild with that thing, you could chop your hand off of your own hilt. So, maybe not the best idea, but it did look cool, and I think that's ultimately what it was. Let's have a cool, different-looking lightsaber.
Yeah, and it does look cool. It does look different. And you know, in the grand scheme of things, when you're actually watching the movie, most people probably aren't going to obsess over the kind of ludicrousness of the design of the thing. And, I get it. They wanted to do something different. They've done the double blade. They've done the whatever. That's why they should have the lightsaber gun blade.
A lightsaber gun blade. Oh my god.
Okay, it's more ridiculous than what they've already done.
I don't, but see, here's the thing about the Gunblade. Okay, like, even if it's not in lightsaber form, like, Final Fantasy, VII was the one with the Gunblade.
You know who else had a Gunblade?
Who?
Admiral Horatio motherfucking Nelson.
I don't think he did.
He totally fucking did. I just read it today.
I don't think that's a Gunblade in the same style as the Final Fantasy Gunblade.
Not quite, but surprisingly close.
Because I'm pretty sure if you took the Final Fantasy Gunblade and actually tried to use that as a sword in a sword fight, you'd break your wrist.
Well, if you use any sword from Final Fantasy in a fucking sword fight, you'd break your wrist. In that regard, it was no different. And look at World of Warcraft, for fuck's sake.
Hey, I always like to use the toned down weapons because I think
because you're boring.
Some of the bigger weapon, like, the problem is with World of Warcraft, with the weapon models, is that there's no middle ground. It's either, realistic looking swords, which are kind of boring, or giant fucking obscene things that look absolutely ridiculous. Like, there's no middle ground where you can just get, like, a really cool looking, sword that looks more elaborate than just your standard, sword, but
sir,
isn't...
I would think you of all people would appreciate a really big sword. And yet here I am having to preach this gospel. Maybe that says things about me that I'll have to contemplate later, but what I'm saying, I mean, it's Final Fantasy in particular has been a horrendous offender for impractical, every fucking MMO or RPG, since you could actually draw a sprite for a sword and have it recognizable as such, has been, unwieldy or just plain ludicrous.
I'm just looking for a middle ground between the absolutely ludicrous and the boring that exists in WoW. And there is no middle ground in WoW. You either have a plain generic looking sword, or you have this fucking obscene thing that makes no sense. And I just want something in the middle. I don't think I'm being unreasonable.
I guess not, but, I always like the more outlandish designs.
There are some outlandish designs I do like.
Just a giant sword isn't enough for me. I want it to have a certain panache to it, I guess.
I do like the one where the blade is in the shape of a lion. A lion, that is pretty cool. But we're kind of getting off topic. We will circle back to Warcraft, but let's stay focused on Star Wars. So we got so that's the double bladed that's the lightsaber with the lightsaber hilt. But let's go into the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon is really the thing that made me go, oh my god! Because, the trailers go and you're like, okay, this looks interesting, and then they're like, and the light. And then they play the Star Wars theme, and like, da 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 na 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 na, and then you see the Millennium Falcon swoop in, fighting TIE fighters, and like, yes! That's the thing that really made me go, awesome!
It was cool to see it again after, all these years of not. It very much kind of drove home at the end this is not the prequels kind of a thing, which they really needed to emphasize, and I think by doing that at the end that they did.
No Jar Jar, no fucking Jar Jar anywhere near this thing.
Yeah, and some people say, kind of backing up just a little bit to the guy with the sword, the backdrop that he was in, some people said they think is going to be indoor in winter. I think it's actually Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow.
People have suggested it's indoor in winter. I'm hesitant to say so because there have been rumors, leaks that indicate that they're kind of coming up with a new planet that's going to be sort of like, the best way to describe I can think of is sort of like just a foresty winter world. I mean, fantasy always has that thing where like they pick one ecosystem and assign an entire planet to it, which doesn't make much sense if you think about it. But, that's how science fiction and fantasy just generally works. So I don't think it's Endor, honestly. I think the Ewoks are something that they're going to want to stay as far away from as possible.
Oh, fuck Ewoks.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Ewoks were really the start of the downward spiral that eventually landed us in the prequels.
And the funny thing is, I mean, Return is actually my favorite of the original trilogy. But
Empire.
Fuck Empire. But I don't know, the Ewoks were just,
Well, apparently the original plan was for it to be the planet of the Wookiees, but like budgetary concerns or something.
So they literally made half Wookiees. Like,
yes.
Literally half Wookiees.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, and also, the trailer starts, we see a stormtrooper stranded in the middle of the desert without his helmet. And I thought that was really cool, because like, okay, we saw in the prequels, they're like, the stormtroopers are clones, and this is definitely not Jango Fett, so obviously the clone thing has been dropped, which, thank God. But, in the original trilogy, we never saw a stormtrooper without his helmet. It just never happened. And so this is really cool, like, is this guy gonna be a bad guy who goes good? Are they gonna actually give the stormtroopers some goddamn character development beyond they're all the clone of one guy? Like, I don't know. I'm really excited by the possibility. It's really mysterious. You just see Stormtrooper. He's panicking. He doesn't have his helmet. He's stranded on what appears to be Tatooine. It's a really fucking interesting idea. And I have no idea. I haven't been keeping up on every single leak. So I don't know, what the plans are with this guy, but I am excited at the possibilities.
I mean, well, it takes the stormtroopers and does what it shouldn't be a big deal, really, what they did with the storm. It really shouldn't be, but it is, because they've always portrayed the stormtroopers as just kind of almost like drones. Like,
yeah.
you never see them hardly. You do hear them talk a little bit, and it's like alluded to that they're just, fucking schlubs that signed on for the dental plan, more or less. And, this kind of, furthers that and gives that feeling.
Well, the thing is that when they introduced the clones in, Attack of the Clones, people were like, wait, does this retroactively mean that every, stormtrooper was a clone? And that pissed a lot of people off, because part of Han Solo's backstory before the prequels was that he was a stormtrooper who then, got out. So people were like, well, now you've just like retconned an interesting part of Han's backstory out of existence.
I don't think it's so mutually exclusive as that. I mean, they're going to run out of clones eventually, or they're going to need more and just not able to clone or what have you. And so, whatever. I don't think it negates any of that.
Well, the extended universe tried to reconcile it by saying that by the time that the Empire was formed, the clones were more or less running out, and most of the stormtroopers were just regular recruits.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
It does, but the thing that always sort of made me not really consider that, canon, is that Star Wars has a weird thing with how they consider, how they say canon works. There's actually tiers, like depending on how prominent the material is, it gets, like, assigned a specific level of canonicity, and like...
Until Disney says fuck you to all of it.
Well, no, exactly, but that's the thing, like, Disney came out and said all the extended universe is null and void, and you're like, well, okay, well, on the question of clone troopers, then that just means if the only thing that now counts are the movies, then there's no reason to suspect that the stormtroopers from the original trilogy aren't clones, because we see the clones, as the stormtroopers in the prequels, and then chronologically we go right into episode 4, 5, and 6, and there's nothing to suggest that they stopped being clones. So it's really interesting to see how they're going to do this. I don't know how much they're actually going to bother answering, but if this means that the stormtroopers are not clones again, then I'm happy for it, because that was kind of a stupid development, and actually kind of made the Jedi seem like assholes when they did the whole clone thing, because it's like, oh, they've got an entire race of disposable people they're just throwing away. Okay, thanks, Jedi. So, obviously I don't think they're gonna retcon Attack of the Clones out, but I think this is going to be an attempt to say, okay, by the time of the Empire, most of the stormtroopers are just guys, which I liked more than the clone thing. But another thing to an idea I had was, well, maybe Disney should retcon the prequels. Like, maybe Disney should make their own set of prequels and just say, remember those other prequels? They don't count. This is the real these are the real prequels, and then just make good prequels.
Maybe they should just wave their arm and declare the prequels to be invalid, like they did everything else that wasn't the original trilogy, and be done with it. And let's not make any more prequels, because I don't want to see it.
But then you'd have, like, if you declared episodes 1 through 3 invalid, then where are episodes 1 through 3?
Up your ass. I don't know. We don't need them.
Like, there's a good argument to be made that we never needed prequels, but they happened.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, they are there. You can't really just wipe, like, you can't, and it's not like the prequels were in like some obscure comic or novel or something. Like, no, they were.
See, this
movies.
is my fucking problem. This is part of my fucking problem with goddamn Star Wars. It is so fucking like, what the hell with all of this shit. I mean, on one hand, you have this extended universe stuff, which is there until Disney, like, wipes their cock on all over it.
But Disney's like, gone. Fuck all of your extended universe.
Then you've got fucking George Lucas over there on a cocaine and LSD-fueled masturbatory rampage, fucking jerking off on his own material and releasing shit like Jar Jar Spinks or whatever the hell. And,
and the special editions.
Yeah, and the special editions with, fucking Han Solo taking a shit on a CGI toilet for no goddamn reason because 90s! And, fuck, do we need this? Fuck! That's part of the reason why I don't really fucking care much for Star Wars. It's part of the reason.
It's actually funny, I got the original, because, people have suspected, and it's kind of been confirmed that the original prints, unedited, unaltered, kind of don't exist anymore, so Disney can't release the original unaltered trilogy on DVD. I managed to find the original trilogy on VHS for around $15. I picked it up. But it's actually funny. It's a copy of the last ever release of the original trilogy on VHS. This was the last time they released them before the special editions came around.
Yeah.
And on the back, and it's in a package where it's like, the 3 VHS tapes are confined in a bigger box.
Mm-hmm.
And on the back of the bigger box is this little message, and it's like, enjoy the final release of the unaltered Star Wars films, signed George Lucas. It's like, I bet at the time when these first hit retail, nobody thought much of that.
It may as well have read, prepare for deep dicking.
No, exactly. Like, nobody thought much of it at the time, but now looking back, god damn it, that's a threat.
I mean, okay, I don't know. Me personally, I don't have any problem with the quote-unquote special editions. I really don't.
I could go into tons of...
Yeah, but the difference is you have fucks to give on that and I don't. I've seen the unedited versions when I was a kid. I've seen the newer versions. And if you sat me in a room and asked, what's the difference? I would say, well, I've seen
Lots
a couple...
of CGI garbage?
I would say, I've seen some CGI dinosaurs. That's about it. Or something, whatever the fuck. And I don't see where it necessarily harmed anything by putting this stuff in there, but I don't see where it made it any better either. I would simply say that it doesn't piss me off because I really didn't care to begin with, but that I don't see the point of them going back and putting all that effort into doing it. And I remember the time Lucas said, well, this is how I wanted them to be to begin with, and that kind of makes me snicker a little bit. Whatever, he's crazy.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is, remember when Ted Turner started colorizing old movies just because he could? Well, George Lucas...
Captain Planet!
George Lucas actually appeared before Congress and said, you shouldn't be able to colorize old movies because movies as art belong to everyone.
Oh my God.
Just not
the Empire is a metaphor for Lucas himself.
The Empire?
Yes.
Explain.
Because he starts out like all good and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, releasing these movies that just basically alter an entire generation's perception of sci-fi and fantasy, revolutionizing, you know, special effects and how they're used, and, you know, creating ideas and methods that have been emulated, you know, for the 3, 4, however many decades since. And then slowly, he goes to the dark side. And then finally, the end presiding over this huge, sprawling, bloated empire, he just gets high off of his own farts and takes steaming hate shits all over all of the things. The Empire is George Lucas himself. All you Star Wars canon nerds out there, chew on that one. I just bested all of you.
He's gonna be every time he releases a new special edition that, you know, does something that the fans hate, he's just like, yes, let the hate flow through you.
Yeah, but he probably also says that when he's taking a shit, too. You know, but the special editions to me were just kind of a waste of time. They didn't offend me. I didn't see anything in there that really altered anything to me that mattered. And consequently, that's also my problem with them. They didn't do anything to me to justify their own existence. I get digitally remastering them and making picture and sound quality better. Of course, I mean, they should be preserved. As I've said numerous times, even though I'm not a big Star Wars fan, I don't diminish their impact on society at all. And, you know, they should be restored and preserved, not systematically ass-raped by the man who made them. But I guess he felt it was his right to do it, and he thought he was doing a good thing, and maybe in his own mind he couldn't conceive of why anyone would possibly not like what he was doing, because, you know, I don't know. And I can almost kind of see his point on that, in that respect. I'll be devil's advocate for a second. Because if you look at how, you know, you've had all this extended universe stuff and all the debates that have just occurred over the smallest minutia in these Star Wars movies, maybe he just wanted to go back and give them more to argue about. You know, more stuff to kind of look at and give them new content. The content drought, gotta fix it. I don't know, well, but
I kind of see, I heard one fan remark, pretty humorously, that if this kept up, the only footage from the original movie that would remain would be a shot of Luke looking kind of sad up at the two suns. But thankfully Disney is here to stop this nonsense before it got too bad. I don't think we'll be seeing any more special editions, honestly. If anything, I could see Disney maybe going back and, like, going to the special editions and taking crap out to make them as close to the original as possible. And then releasing those, but I don't think we're gonna see any more quote-unquote improvements to the original trilogy. But I'm excited. The term I'd use when I saw the Millennium Falcon fighting the TIE Fighters, the Star Wars theme, the term to describe my reaction was I squeed.
Oh dear God, I'm squeed. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't hear that.
So Star Wars Episode VII, Force Awakens, stupid name, but the movie looks promising.
Now, the chick that they showed, is that supposed to be Han and Leia's daughter?
No idea.
Okay.
I have no idea about any of the characters we saw in that. The rumor for the bad guy is, like, with the lightsaber that we talked about, the rumor is that he's going to be an Inquisitor, because we do know that the Empire is still going to be a thing. Obviously, destroying the Death Star didn't just automatically destroy the Empire. It's still an entity. And apparently, the Inquisitors, and what we saw was a quote-unquote Inquisitor, are basically evil Force wielders who the Empire uses to try to snuff out the new Jedi Order that Luke started after Return of the Jedi. So, again, that's just speculation based on leaked information, but as far as I can tell, that's who that guy was. I don't know if the chick on the, whatever it was, that Sand Runner thing, I don't know who that's supposed to be, but that's as much as I can tell. That's as much as I can tell.
Why have those things?
What?
Like these like floating car things that they have in the Star Wars universe.
I don't know.
What's the point of them? I mean,
sci-fi?
Yeah, but just think about it. Like, what's the point of having one that just kind of like hovers over the ground like that? Why not just get an actual aircraft? I mean, if it can do that, then it can hover higher, and if it can hover higher,
I guess it's for like short-term transportation. Like if you live on Tatooine, right, and you just you don't need a plane to like go down the road or something, but like it's all sand, so maybe something with wheels isn't the most convenient thing either. So, like a hover car or something is good for short distances, and you don't have to deal with the sandy terrain. That'd be my guess.
I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah. Episode 7 teaser trailer. It's a thing. It's there. Blah, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Now, let's switch gears and talk about, some speculation about the future of Warlords of Draenor.
Oh, hell no, son. Oh, wait, we're not there yet. Sorry.
So, basically, patch 6.0, launched. The game has launched. But this is rumored to be a list of plot points for the upcoming 6.1 patch, which will be the next major part in the Warlords of Draenor story. And so here we go. Let's dive right in, sir. Now, this is kind of written up in kind of a lengthy paragraph, and it's actually a couple of paragraphs, and the lack of really any spacing, it's just really 3 blobs of text, have got people saying that this doesn't really seem official because it's not properly spaced. But at the same time, the same people who leaked this were the people who leaked the fact that Warlords of Draenor would be happening when everyone else thought it would be Argus.
Right.
So, these are the same people who came out and said, next expansion's gonna be going back in time to Draenor, and everyone else was like, that's fucking stupid. And then, well, we all saw what happened. So, the fact that these people have kind of a track record of getting the information right, it warrants discussion is what I'm saying. So
yeah.
Let's dive into, the plot points again.
Oh, hell no, son! Oh, wait, sorry, we're not there yet.
Again, big blobs of text, it would be just too fucking dense to read through line for line, so I'm just gonna pick out plot points. And we're gonna go from there. It says that 6.1 is going to see both the Alliance and Horde sending reinforcements to Draenor. King Varian Rin, High King of the Alliance, and War Chief Vol'jin, the leader of the Horde, are both going to show up with their respective factions. Anduin is also coming to Draenor to learn more about Draenor's history with Lord Walker Chow. Lord Walker Chow was, of course, everyone's favorite Pandaren historian from Mists of Pandaria. So Anduin and Chow are showing up to sort of learn about the history of Warcraft. History of Draenor, sorry. Bleh. He wants history of Warcraft and go to Wowpedia. Anyway,
and I'm sure they'll get into hilarious adventures.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
Anduin's a scamp. Anyway, unlike Mr. Pandaria, where Varian was pissed that Anduin ran off, Varian actually is, okay with Anduin being here, because he thinks it would be a great opportunity for Anduin to learn about the orcs and their history and kind of learn
to hate them like he should.
Exactly, because Anduin is a giant pussy, and so Varian's like, well, maybe this'll teach the boy some right. I don't know. Honestly, I think Varian and Grom should get together and have a beer and just bitch about how their sons just ain't right.
Yeah, and I think even probably like the soul of Deathwing would show up for that conversation. I got one on both of you. Look at mine.
Oh, he had Nefarion. Nefarion was a good villain, but then Raytheon happened. But, anyway, so that's that plot point. Also, they're saying Sylvanas is coming, to Shadowmoon Valley with the Forsaken because she wants to learn more about the shadow magic Ner'zhul is using.
Oh, she is so going to try to become the Lich King.
Well, here it is. Vol'jin berates Sylvanas for going forward with this plan, but she ventures into Shadowmoon anyway and finds an ancient Shadowmoon orc tablet that talks about shadow magic. The Knights of the Ebon Blade, those are the neutral order of Death Knights who fought against the Lich King.
Right.
Knights of the Ebon Blade show up to stop her, threatening her that if she doesn't put the tablet back, they're going to attack due to the danger it possesses. Sylvanas then unleashes the power of the tablet upon the Knights of the Ebon Blade and mind controls them, and the Death Knights then fall under her mind-controlled sway. Sylvanas is surprised and tells the Horde player character not to speak of this again before she and her now-controlled Death Knights return to Undercity. So yeah, she's becoming the Lich King, basically.
Oh, that's actually pretty interesting. That's cool as fuck, actually. I like that.
For the Alliance story, you ventured with Anduin and Lorewalker Chow to Nagrand, to learn more about Orcish history. Lorewalker Chow finds a shamanistic cave full of the history of the Warsong clan. Both Lorewalker Chow, the player character, and Anduin are confronted by Grom Hellscream. Hellscream threatens everyone to surrender or meet death. Grom then sends a stampede of Warsong warriors at them and swears death upon Anduin. Lorewalker Chow encases everyone in mist, and that's how you escape. Then Jaina Pranmore, leader of the Kirin Tor, the Alliance faction of mages, shows up with you at your garrison and asks what happened. Anduin tells her that Lorewalker Chow could explain it better. And then, Lorewalker Chow tells her, then apparently pisses off back to Pandaria.
Okay.
Which I find funny. It's like, fuck this! I'm out!
White folks is dead, Panda getting out of here, drive motherfucker, drive!
Exactly. After you meet back, you meet back at Asheran. Oh, okay, no, not Asheran. Here's the next big thing. During BlizzCon 2013, when they first announced Warlords of Draenor, they announced that Draenor has two continents, the main one that we are on, and another continent which is going to be the base of power for an ogre empire.
Okay. Yeah.
According to these notes, patch 6.1 is going to see us going to this ogre continent.
Or at least part of it, I'm thinking. I'm thinking they may actually save, because, like, you can see, or I've seen, like, the tip of the continent on the southern edge of the Draenor map. I don't think that's meant to be the entire thing, though, or at least I hope not, because it's not very much. So I'm thinking they'll probably only have us in that northern part of that southern continent, and then probably give us the rest, maybe even another expansion.
Mm-hmm. So basically what they're saying is that you're gonna go to this ogre continent with your faction leaders. Your faction leaders, are in awe of your achievements in bringing down 3 of the warlords, of course, by the time this launches, Blackhand, Nerzul, and, Kargath Bladefist are all dead. So, basically, either Varian Rin if you're Alliance or Vol'jin if you're Horde are gonna be like, you demand! Khadgar sends message that it's time to continue your legendary quest. To empower your magical ring even further. He tells you to meet up with your faction at the, quote, seat of the Ogre Empire. The ogres are rising up in retaliation, against the mass murder of the ogres in Hymal. So this continent is the basis for ogre power. The main ogre settlement on, the continent of Draenor that we start off on is called Hymal. Hymal is going to be a raid that should be opening within a week or two, actually.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be the follow-up to that in that, you killed a bunch of ogres in Hymal and now they're pissed. The ogres are rising up in retaliation for the murder of ogres at Hymal. This is the first interesting part. Quote, though weakened, they have new potential allies who must prove themselves worthy to call the ogres their friends, the Zandalari trolls.
Oh, hell no, son. Finally, right part. No, totally fucking, I mean, if this is true, which we don't really know that it is for sure, but if this does prove to be true, fucking called that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you did. Because, okay, for those unaware, the Zandalari are a troll empire within the Warcraft universe. And they are,
useless, almost
without fucking fail, mid-expansion, raid fodder. Without fail, each expansion, in the middle of it, before the big final expansion, there is a raid where you have to fight the fucking Zandalari trolls, and every troll raid sucks ass. Without question.
Yeah.
They're all terrible.
Yeah.
And, when we went to Draenor, I was like, well, at least we won't have trolls, because the trolls are actually one of the most ancient races on Azeroth. And so they could justify it before, because if we're on Azeroth, they're like, oh, well, the trolls were everywhere at one point, so there's gonna be troll ruins or troll outposts everywhere. Alright, fine. The raids still suck, but at least that's justified from a story perspective. But there are no trolls on Draenor. The trolls are alien to Draenor. So when they announced that this whole expansion would be on Draenor, I'm like, well, at least there's not going to be any, mid-expansion troll raids. And you were like, they're going to find a way. And if this is true, they fucking did. I love the response on the WoW forums to this news, though. Like, some guy just quoted it, and at first he quoted that little part, that whole thing. Then he just quoted the Zandalari. Then he just quoted Zandalari. And then he typed, why? I mean, they're basically Team Rocket at this point. Every expansion, they try to start shit up and they get beat. And because it's mid-expansion, it's so insignificant that everyone's forgotten about them by the time the last raid of the expansion launches.
Yeah.
We be blasting off again, man!
Pretty much. I don't see... My god, I am so fucking sick of these fucking troll raids.
And you know what's best? They're gonna be combining trolls and ogres. World of Warcraft, patch 6.1. Bottom of the barrel.
This... It was shaping up to be such a wonderful expansion.
I can just see, they probably had a board meeting. The players are having too much fun. We need to do something about this. It's either that, or there's one guy in Blizzard. One guy who just really fucking loves the trolls. And they don't let him, and all they do is and they give him like one patch per expansion, and like they're like, look, it's just easier this way. It's easier than dealing with him. Like he won't shut up about the trolls. Like it's just easier to give him the one expansion. It's just, otherwise it's a thing, and there's a confrontation, and nobody wants it. Just let him have one patch per expansion. Okay, so let's move on. This is gonna be fun. Khadgar sends you on a quest line to go wipe out Zandalari forces throughout various dungeons and raids, collecting items of great power and Zandalari artifacts.
Gee, where the fuck have we heard this before?
It's and you know what? It was a fucking troll raid that made you collect all that bullshit in Pandaria too. Throne of Thunder. God. Okay, so more running around a troll raid 20 times to collect trinkets for some super magical asshole who sends you to do his busy work.
Pretty much.
So you get that, he empowers your ring, until your base in the ogre continent is ambushed by, Garona Half-Orcan. She knocks you and Khadgar out and interrogates him. She is then stunned by, Karana being Khadgar's, Night Elf bodyguard, and the player fights alongside her. Garona kills, Corona in the process and escapes as soon as Khadgar recovers from the ambush. He finds a note dropped outside describing that the Shadow Council, that's Gul'dan's, collection of orcs loyal to the Burning Legion, had ambushed the base and find an artifact powerful enough to summon, quote-unquote, the Great One to Draenor. So, Gul'dan's got some shit going on. He's gonna summon Space Satan to fucking Draenor.
Could it be Space Satan?
Well, whenever people say the Great One in reference to the Legion, it's fucking Sargeras. Like, either him or Kil'jaeden. Maybe Archimonde, but Archimonde's sort of like the Diet Coke of that trilogy. Of that triumvirate. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, Sargeras, Titan turned evil, now he's Space Satan. Kil'jaeden, powerful, once a confidant of Valen, one of the most powerful Iridar in the universe, and now, the right-hand man of Space Satan. Then you have Archimonde, who, over the course of Warcraft 3, got beat by a tree. So,
Well, look, I can't criticize because I've come across a few very violent trees in my life too. So, you're going to have that. But I am glad that we might potentially be getting, some more Burning Legion tie-in with this whole thing.
Oh, well, the Burning Legion stuff gets better. Following that, afterwards, investigate, to do various tasks for your faction. At the end, you confront Gul'dan alongside either Yrel of your alliance or Durotan of your horde, who is meeting with yet another newly appointed warlord you had confronted before. That this seems to be the new warlord of the Burning Blade clan, who throughout the storyline has been seen talking to Shadow Council members. You fight them and find out that after, the death of Blackhand and the destruction of Blackrock Foundry, some of the Iron Horde began messing around with Fel magic and appointed Gul'dan as their new war chief of the, quote, Iron Legion. They plan to trick Grom into drinking the blood of the Great One and invade Azeroth with an army of Fel-empowered orcs. Before you can kill Gul'dan, he causes the building to collapse, and you and either Yrel or Durotan escape with wounds. Varian or Vol'jin, whatever faction you're on, is alerted to all this news, but all things go to hell as Grom Hellscream arrives on the shore of your garrison and battles your forces. Alliance and Horde are all in the same scene together. Vol'jin, Thrall, and Varian are all fighting together. Anduin shows up and tells Grom of what happened in the original timeline. And Grom remembers what happened to the Stones of Prophecy from the Hellscream short story, where he saw the quote-unquote main timeline, and in a fit of rage attempts to kill Anduin. Instead, Varian shields Anduin from a legendary cleave of Grom's Gorehowl axe lands a fatal wound. Yrel and Drekthar, High Shaman of the Frostwolf clan, do all they can to save Varian, but fail. On Varian's deathbed, he appoints Anduin as the High King of the Alliance.
Oh, hell no!
So, I know I dropped a big bomb on that, but I want to back up just a second. I know you're a fan of the Burning Legion lore.
Yes.
What did you think? What do you think about that whole story with apparently the Burning Legion feeling as, the Iron Horde feeling as if Grom doesn't know what he's doing, and then turning to Gul'dan, and Gul'dan sort of forming the quote Iron Legion?
I think that's kind of cool, possibly, depending on how they do it. Like, you take this whole kind of like industrial steampunk aesthetic that you've gotten with the Iron Horde, and you add some Burning Legion and trappings to it, and it could be very menacing and very badass. It's also kind of like, well, you can only meddle so much with history, but what's going to happen is going to happen kind of a thing. So that's
eventually the orcs will fall to demon corruption and try to invade Azeroth.
Right, because they just suck.
Yes.
So, I think that's kind of cool too. And it could be, a thing of, well, very many places that could springboard off into for future expansions if they want. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So let's move on to the next plot point, the death of Varian Wrynn. Now...
Fucking Anduin.
Now, one of the things that makes me think this might be legitimate is that Chris Metzen has gone on record saying that he wants Anduin to be king eventually.
Yeah, and then there's that whole prophecy about Army of Light. Yeah,
Vaylin had a prophecy about... there's also prophecy where Anduin is the leader of the Army of Light that's going to defeat the Legion, and so Anduin being in a position of leadership within the Alliance would certainly help him be in a position of leadership in some Army of Light. So there's that. But let's talk about why this sucks, because Anduin's a fucking pussy.
Yeah. At least as he is now, he's an insufferable twat.
Indeed. His whole thing is, we should seek out peace with the Horde, but it goes past the point where that becomes idealistic and it becomes just stupid. Like, for example, he kept trying to say there's good in Garrosh Hellscream throughout the trial of Garrosh in the novel War Crimes. And what was Garrosh's... And when they gave Garrosh a moment to say something in his own defense at the end of that trial, what did he say? I would kill you all if I had the chance. The only atrocities I regret are the ones I did not yet get to commit.
Right. There's a point between being a peaceful, wise leader who's not going to have your own people killed needlessly in a war when you can end it. Okay, I get that. But then there's just plain stupidity and weakness. And he crosses that line into, like, basically fucking Neville Chamberlain territory.
Exactly. A good example of a wise leader who nonetheless a wise leader who values peace and yet who isn't afraid to actually stand to protect his people is actually Vaylin. Vaylin, the prophet of the Draenor. In the Draenor starting zone, you actually capture a member of the Legion. And you take them, and Vaylin puts them on trial, and it's like, you've been found guilty of genocide against the Draenor people. I'm sentencing you to death. Fuck off. And Vaylin is traditionally depicted as sort of this wise leader who values peace, but even he's not afraid of saying, no, sometimes you just gotta shoot a bitch.
Right, exactly.
And so Anduin is sort of the other side of that, in that he seeks peace to a fault, and there really haven't been any instances of him learning that he's got to toughen up and take a harder stand against some things. You'd think Pandaria maybe would have been that, but he never really learned that lesson. Maybe he does in Draenor, I don't know, but Anduin as first of all, as King of Stormwind is bad enough, but High King of the Alliance is even more terrible. Because think about High King of the Alliance is that it's not really a hereditary position. Like, the Alliance had no single leader, then everyone was just kind of like, well, Varian's a good tactician, and he leads the most powerful nation, so he should probably be the guy. And true, Anduin will be leading Stormwind if this happens, but he's not, I don't think he's experienced enough to be the leader of the Alliance. I say, if Varian dies and Anduin becomes King of Stormwind, we have a vote for the next High King of the Alliance.
Yeah, I agree. And
Ben Greymane for High King.
I would actually go for Moira.
Moira, huh?
Yeah.
Why Moira? The one of the leaders of the dwarves.
Because she is, she's very intelligent, she's politically very cunning, she isn't afraid to risk her troops, she isn't afraid to, take things to the military level if need be. She unified the dwarves after, that whole Three Kings thing, and they were bickering amongst each other and everything. She's shown very exemplary leadership skills. Mm-hmm. And that would be good towards, keeping the Alliance together and all that other stuff, should Blizzard ever give them an interesting storyline. So, that would be good, I think. Now, if we're just going to go for someone who's already not a racial leader, Sky Admiral Rogers for High Queen all the fucking way.
Well, the thing about the High King thing is that I actually kind of don't like the title. I prefer the title to be Supreme Commander of the Alliance, because when you call it High King or High Queen, you imply sovereignty over the other nations, and that's really not the case. Even when Varian, as High King, part of the Blood in the Snow scenario in Pandaria was that he couldn't just demand the dwarves give him troops. He had to ask for them. Yeah. So he's not, he doesn't have sovereignty over the dwarven nation. He still has to go to their leaders and ask them for help and whatnot. So I never liked the term High King. Who would have been a great candidate for Supreme Commander of the Alliance if they weren't going to use a leader?
No.
What?
No, I think I know what you're going to, I think I do know what you're going to say, but go on.
I was going to say Bolvar.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say Tyrion Fordring.
No, not Tyrion Fordring, no. No, he's a fucking neutral panty waste. Fuck him. No. I was gonna say Bolvar Fordragon, but he's currently busy being the Lich King, so that train already left the station.
Yeah, that's probably not what we would want him doing right now.
But I'm just saying, I think had they not done that, he would have been a great choice to be a non-racial, someone who wasn't a racial leader, be the Supreme Allied Commander. But yeah, I could deal with, Moira as High Queen. I wouldn't mind that. But, I don't know, just like the idea, okay, yeah, Anduin's gonna be King of Stormwind, that's how monarchy works. But I don't see why he should necessarily be the High King of the Alliance. Someone else should get that until Anduin learns to not suck.
That's probably going to be a long wait.
Well, he is the Wesley Crusher of Warcraft.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I at least hope that all of this isn't true.
Mm.
Something tells me it probably is, though.
Well, again, the source has a track record of success, and and there are plot points in here that seem to match up with what we've heard them say before. They did say that the final raid of the expansion would have a mixture of the Iron Horde and Burning Legion.
Right.
This tends to indicate that will be the case. Metzen has said he wants Anduin to become king one day. This would accomplish that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if someone wanted to forge something and make it seem real, then they could put those aspects into it knowing that it would make it seem more legitimate. So, I don't know what to think, honestly. I just don't know. It's interesting. The big thing why I don't think, the big thing that's giving me cause to say that it's not legitimate is, the whole Ogre Continent thing. They've never done that where midway through an expansion, they just introduce a whole other continent of stuff. That's never happened. It's not like, in Wrath of the Lich King, it wasn't up, it's not like at 3.2 we left Northrend and went to some other place for a patch. That didn't happen. And I don't know, I just don't see keeping an entire continent of content a secret, until 6.1. I don't see what the point of that would be. I think they would have advertised it.
I don't think it's going to be an entire continent. I think it's going to be a part of a continent. The rest of it will exist and maybe use later if they decide they have something they can do with it. But we would just go to that northern tip of that southern continent, is what I think it would be.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I mean, if this story is any indication, they need to be able to fit a troll raid into it and have an area big enough to explore to make it not feel so small for a whole patch.
I think it would be kind of like, probably similar in size to the Isle of Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
Or Timeless Isle or something like that.
That's possible.
It'd basically be maybe a new zone, maybe at most 2 zones.
Mm-hmm. Now, that is definitely possible, but I don't know, like a whole new continent after already getting a continent, nothing, it wouldn't surprise, after Warlords of Draenor launched, I didn't think it would happen, I don't think they'd ever go for that story, but after it did happen, I'm in a position where nothing surprises me anymore. I just don't see it as something that fits in with their standard MO of doing things, but who knows? Just trolls.
It hasn't been their standard MO of doing things to kill off faction leaders either, but I guess replace faction leaders. But they
I don't know, Karen got killed off. Maggie
right, well, I was
going to
say, right, but it was, what I'm saying is it was unprecedented until they did it. So, and Draenor so far, I mean, they're almost fucking giving George R.R. Martin a run for his money so far.
Of all the character deaths, yeah.
Yeah, so they're definitely approaching storytelling in this expansion with a different, mindset, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty, it would seem, so, It
seems like they saw people loving Game of Thrones. They're like, Game of Thrones kills off their beloved characters.
Yeah.
And
Let's
people
kill
like it.
all of the things.
But, those are the patch 6.1 rumors. Want to emphasize that. Rumors. We don't know much of anything at this point. We don't know much of anything regarding the authenticity of this, but wanted to get that information out there. That, I think, really concludes part 1 of episode 43. I guess we'll finish this up tomorrow.
Yup.
Alright, so we will see you after the edit.
Later.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to part 2 of episode 43 of basically a Geek Show. We've got a real special treat for you for the second part of this episode, as Jack here takes on the role of the bad movie public defender as he attempts to defend the cinematic holocaust that is Star Trek V, The Final Frontier?
Holocaust, huh?
It's so bad it made me use the word Holocaust.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Kind of like your singing does with me, right?
Kind of, yes. So, you know how you feel about my singing?
Yes.
That's how every reasonable person feels about Star Trek V.
Well, fortunately for the world at large, you don't have a reasonable person defending this. You have me.
Okay. So, this is kind of one of those, this is an elephant where it's like, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time, but where do you start? So, I'm just gonna go with the film, perhaps the film's biggest problem overall is that its ambition far exceeds the practical limitations that were placed upon it. And Shatner's failure to recognize those limitations led to a movie that, while it has a large scope, feels kind of cheap and disjointed.
Just like you.
Yes. Except I'm not a blockbuster movie, so I'm allowed to be.
I don't... Okay. Is this the best in the Star Trek franchise movie line? No, it's not.
It's actually the second lowest grossing of all time. Only Nemesis made less money.
And see, I fucking love Nemesis. Maybe we should be defending that one instead, but, it's not even the worst Star Trek movie. Okay, Star Trek the Motion Picture. God, that thing was awful. Star Trek V. I mean, what did it do wrong? Yeah, it had some broad shit that it tried to deal with, but a lot of that wasn't Shatner's fault that it turned into what it did. As you and I have discussed, he had this really nice script written, and they're like, no, we need you to add some comedy, we need this, that, and the other. And it was Paramount that made a lot of these forced changes on Shatner. So, I'll say poor Bill, even though he is an insufferable arse, that wasn't his fault. Now, the movie itself, I think, I thought it was cool because at the time, you really didn't see things like this being done in a science fiction environment, like tackling questions like God and all this other stuff, which the original version, of course, would have been much more along those lines, but it was kind of watered down a bit, probably to keep from pissing people off.
It actually wasn't. These are some of the limitations I'm talking about. Basically, for those unaware, Shatner's original plan was that, and again, the reason why I keep bringing up Shatner, for those who are perhaps unaware, Shatner both wrote and directed this. Nimoy had written and directed 4, and so Shatner was given the go-ahead to do 5. The thing about Star Trek V was that Shatner's original plan was that the Enterprise would go to the center of the galaxy looking to find God and would instead find Satan. And I don't mean just, powerful beings that you could interpret as God or Satan. I mean, they would actually find the biblical Lucifer at the center of the galaxy. That was the original.
Satan?
Like, that was the original plan.
Or Sargeras.
We don't know where Sargeras is. He's out chilling somewhere. He's been MIA since Warcraft 1, I think. Anyway, that was the plan. Now, Paramount did change a lot of Shatner's original script, but this actually wasn't one of the changes. What ended up happening was Shatner wanted ILM, who had previously done the special effects for the other Star Trek movies, to do the special effects here. The problem was ILM is owned by Lucas, which usually isn't a problem, except for the fact that while Star Trek V was filming, well, that was when Indiana Jones 3 was filming, and obviously Indiana Jones being a Lucas franchise, well, you can tell where ILM's priorities were going to be in that regard. So ILM was doing Indy 3. basically ensuring that Shatner had a much reduced special effects budget and a much less talented special effects team. And the change from finding Satan at the center of the galaxy to finding just some nebulous evil alien guy was because they couldn't get the special effects to work in any meaningful way. They couldn't do Satan effectively, essentially.
Right.
Is what it came down.
Right. And again, that goes to, a lot of what's perceived as wrong with this movie, is not its fault.
Mm-hmm.
You had Paramount that was doing their thing. You had ILM, which had their shit going on. And poor Bill here, kind of stuck in the middle. And I think the movie, if you know a lot of what, and granted, for a movie to truly be quote unquote good, yeah, no, you shouldn't have to know the backstory behind what happened with it. I get that. But, as a kid in the theaters when I seen this movie, I didn't dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool. Especially that shit at the end and, Enterprise fighting this big fuck all, whatever the hell it was.
That's another part of the movie's problem is that what ends up being the antagonist of the film is never really clearly explained. At least in the original script, okay, it's Satan. They find Satan. You can argue whether or not that's something that belongs in a Star Trek film, but at least in that script, in that initial version, you know what you're fighting. They never really explain what the entity they find at the center of the galaxy is.
But they didn't know. See, in the context of the movie, it works because, okay, it shows in spite of all their technology, this 20-whatever fucking century, 22nd, 23rd century technology is that they have, all their scanners and all their knowledge, they had no fucking clue what this was, and it worked. That's kind of what made it awesome. They didn't know what the hell it was. It was just there, it was really fucking powerful, and it was trying to pork them in the ass.
No, see, that can work, but that can't be how it ends. You need the characters need to go on a journey of discovery. And there wasn't, partially because by the time they come across this thing, it's already the end of the movie. They really don't have time to do the plot where they figure out what it is. But as a result, the movie ends, and your average moviegoer is like, the fuck was that?
See, for me it worked. I didn't say what the fuck was that, because I got it. And I was, God, how old would I have been?
It was 89.
89? So I would have been like 10, maybe 11 at the time. So, okay, me 10 or 11 years old, I got this no problem. So I don't think anyone else has any excuse. Unless you're just stupid.
Keep in mind, okay, that 1989 was also the same year that the James Bond movie License to Kill came out. Now, just to give you a gauge of the intelligence of the average moviegoer, at least in 1989, the James Bond movie License to Kill, the plot actually involves Bond's license to kill being revoked. And the original movie title was going to be License Revoked. But, focus groups to kind of do market research for the movie indicated that the vast majority of Americans did not understand what the word revoked meant.
Yeah, and so, exactly, so people are stupid. And if a criticism of a movie is based on the stupidity of the viewer, well, that's not the movie's fault. When they make movies to bring the viewer up to their level, don't bring the movies down to the people's level. Because, as Tommy Lee Jones said in Men in Black, a person is intelligent. People are dumb, dangerous animals.
It's dumb, panicky animals.
Whatever.
That's actually a favorite quote of mine. But,
your face!
Look, I don't disagree necessarily with any of your base premises. My main argument here is that, are the movie's faults its own fault? And another thing, just to show how Indiana Jones 3 fucked this movie up the ass, Cybok, who is presented as the antagonist, but then sort of turns into not the antagonist.
Wasn't he supposed to be played by Sean Connery?
he was supposed to be played by Sean Connery, but of course Indiana Jones 3 was happening, so he was predisposed, so they ended up going with Lawrence Luckinbill to play Sybok, and by all accounts, he was a competent actor, but truth be told, sci-fi was really not his strong suit. In fact, he only did one other previous science fiction film before he did Star Trek V.
Right.
And Shatner actually cast him because he loved him in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Problem was, Liebach absolutely despised that movie that he was in. So he got cast for Star Trek V based on his performance in a movie that he hated. So sci-fi was sort of out, he was sort of out of his element with sci-fi in that regard. But, you know, my point is that, you know, the disjointed theme, because again, this is a movie that is trying to tackle some serious philosophical questions, but it's littered with comedy. And, that's a problem. And of course, that's not necessarily the movie's fault, that's Paramount's fault, because Star Trek IV, I think remains the highest grossing Star Trek film of all time.
Right. And
certainly was at the time. And
yeah.
it was a comedy in a lot of ways. So Paramount was like, hey, we want you to put comedy in here.
We need more jokes, yo.
Pretty much.
I don't think the movie necessarily suffered all that bad from the comedy.
I do like that scene where Scotty is like, I know this ship like the back of me hand, and then he like turns around and hits his head on a bulkhead and falls down. Like, it's like, this is a movie that's supposed to be exploring, you know, the relationship, like, is there a higher power? You know, can we physically, you know, touch the face of God? Like, this is like...
Well, evidently they don't know that, but they know they can fire fucking torpedoes at it. Oops.
But like, yeah, but, you know, it's just sort of one of those things where it's like, okay, you're trying to ask these questions, but then you've got slapstick going on, and like, and then there's Uhura, who doesn't understand Klingon. She has to have like a translator out to like speak to some Klingon. They're trying to pass themselves off as Klingon, and like they're over the comm system, and she has to have like an English to Klingon dictionary with her. Well, she is the experienced communications officer on the Federation flagship. She should fucking be fluent in Klingon.
It's one scene. It's one scene in a movie.
But my point is, that's another point though, where it's like the whole point is, oh, it's funny because the scene is shot comedically, where they're all sort of huddled around like the comm system, and Uhura's, you know, flipping through the pages looking for the right words, and it's like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be funny. But it's one of those things where the tone of the movie severely suffers because you go from comedy that makes no sense to slapstick to serious philosophical questions, and it kind of just gives you mood whiplash. Like, if this was a comedic Star Trek movie, okay. If this was a deep philosophical Star Trek movie, okay. But it tries to be both, and I understand, again, that's at Paramount's, discretion, that's at Paramount's, you know, basically mandate. My point, though, is that Shatner should have realized this. Basically, Shatner had a plan, and he presented it to Paramount. And Paramount said, we want it to be a comedy. And Shatner said, I can make this story work as a comedic story. And it really doesn't. So my point, though, is that while it's not necessarily the film's fault, one, that doesn't stop it from being bad, and two, Shatner should have had enough wherewithal to realize that the story that he wanted to do wasn't gonna work with the limitations Paramount was placing on him, and he should have recognized that and done something else.
I don't think it made the movie bad. I really don't. I mean, it didn't help it, but it didn't make it worse to me. Also, I would say, okay, yes, in that scene it does appear that the crew of Enterprise are bumbling idiots. I get it. But at the same time, to me that just draws a startlingly frightening comparison to the real-life military sometimes. I mean, and I'm not, you know, slighting anyone who served in our armed forces. Definitely not. But what I am saying is that idiocy in the military, especially at higher levels, can be very hilarious. And it is something that happens unintentionally or what have you, those off situations. And it kind of drew a parallel to that in a way. It did, in the sense that it doesn't feel out of place. That, okay, just so happens her Klingon is rusty because, well, they haven't had to infiltrate whatever recently. Mm-hmm. A Klingon facility or an installation or what have you. It's like saying, okay, well, would, on a U.S. naval flagship during the Cold War, would their comm officer know Russian?
He probably should.
Should, yeah, but would he? Not necessarily. Or would he know extremely fluently? Not necessarily.
I think that would be a pretty big oopsie, if that led to something down the road.
But it's plausible. I mean, you actually had to stop and think about it. Your response wasn't, oh, well, definitely. No, you had to stop and think about it. So then it's not all that implausible, is it?
Maybe not. But moving on again to back to the special effects. Again, the special effects suffered. At the end of the movie, there was supposed to be a fight with a giant rock monster that never made it in because the rock monster that they were able to mock up looked like absolute garbage. And again, they went from this grandiose plan of angels and demons and Satan to just like some glowy, floaty head. And again, this is a case where Shatner failed to recognize limitations. He wanted ILM. I understand that. ILM was not available. Okay, that was the reality of the situation he was presented. And instead of instead of calling an audible and doing something else that that would have been less special effects heavy, he instead tried to force the under-budgeted, underqualified team he did have to fulfill his grandiose vision. I'm saying he should have had enough sense to rein the vision back, but he really didn't. That's my point. Like, a lot of these situations aren't, like, yeah, it's not the movie's fault. It's not even Shatner's fault necessarily, but Shatner should have had the wherewithal to realize that things weren't breaking his way and adjust accordingly.
To me, it doesn't seem, this whole thing where you're saying, well, he should have known to restrain the vision and do this and the other thing. I don't think the movie suffered that bad. I mean, it's like we're talking about two different things. It's not a bad movie. It's not the best Star Trek movie. No. But then again, I can't even say that because I hate deserts. I have this bias against deserts, and the whole thing opens with some kind of goddamn desert scene that I hate. I hate deserts.
Well,
I wish they would go away. And I tend to be biased against desert levels, desert scenes, desert anything. So even my standpoint on that is kind of biased in that regard. But in spite of that, I can say the movie itself was still pretty good. I liked it. I mean, if you want to see bad, again, go watch Star Trek the Motion Picture. There's your fucking snooze fest. And Star Trek V, yeah. And how much of this is because of the movie itself, and how much is it people coming off of Star Trek IV that everyone seemed to love so fucking much because, sir, save the whales! And oh hey, time jokes! They're from the future, but they're in like this big city and everyone's rude and it's all funny, you get it? How much of it is because people are coming off of that when they think of this movie?
But you'd think, though, that Star Trek IV being so successful that it actually ensured that TNG got made. Like, a movie that successful, you'd think it would have a built-in audience for Star Trek V, that there would be enough people to see Star Trek V because of that to make it at least profitable, even if they didn't necessarily like it. But instead, we see that Star Trek V bombed. It was so bad that it just kept people away.
I don't know. Okay, so maybe it was just people just liking the Next Generation crew a lot better, because you had this new generation that it kind of, no pun intended, tapped into. It was like, it wasn't my mother's Star Trek. It was, her and I, when we would watch this, we knew about as much about it as the other did. we were on equal footing, whereas before it would always be me being drug into her thing and watching, the original series, which, for the record, I actually don't even like the original series that much. But anyways, I liked the movies, but not the original TV series all that much. So, maybe it's partly because of the success of the Next Generation, and people went back like, oh, well, these guys, blah, blah, blah.
That doesn't really account, though, for 6 doing well in the box office. I mean, 6 did well.
And see, to me, 6 was about as good as 5. I mean, I liked... Okay, 5 and 6 both dealt with themes that I personally find very intriguing. I mean, 5 had this whole bigger question of, God and the universe and all this other shit. And then you had 6, which was kind of like this Cold War analog political thriller kind of thing. And I happen to eat both of those things up any fucking time they're given to me. And so I like them about equally, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about it, though, is that, again, those are themes that I find interesting, too, but 6 doesn't fumble with its plot with unnecessary humor and bad special effects, whereas 5 does. I think 6 manages to make the most out of its theme, whereas 5 just sort of flounders.
I don't think 5 flounders. I think it tells its story. It tells it reasonably well. Mm-hmm. It didn't really seem to suffer from a pacing issue to me. It was fairly well edited. It feels like it's progressing pretty much the entire time. It really, okay, when I look at a movie, is it fun? Does it deal with topics that I'm interested in? Are these things presented in a way that I find entertaining? Is the editing good? Does it feel like you're progressing throughout the movie, not sitting there, jerking off while they figure out what the hell they want to do? And it meets all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get it.
It's a case where Star Trek 5, again, the ambition fell short of the, of the realities. And again, my argument is the creative team should have been aware of those realities and adjusted accordingly and perhaps made a better movie. But another thing that a lot of people don't like is that, Sulu and Chekhov actually turn on Kirk in this movie. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because in, Star Trek 3, Sulu and Chekhov agree to help him steal the Enterprise, knowing it'll be the end of their careers, but they do it because they are that loyal to James T. Kirk. And in this movie, they just abandon him. Now, it's hand-waved by saying, oh, Sybok had some, he has some never-explained ability to remove people's pain, and that makes them loyal to him. But it kind of seems like a weak excuse given to make 2 officers who had never shown anything but loyalty and respect for Kirk to just suddenly turn on him. In fact, the original script had everyone turning on Kirk, including Spock and Bones, but Nimoy and Kelly both refused, saying it was absolutely absurd.
To me, what I kind of gauged it as wasn't so much Sybok had this crazy mind fuck all ability. It was that okay, you had the one movie where they hijack a ship for their captain. Then the next movie, they betray their captain for basically religion and a belief. And that goes beyond, for a lot of people, that goes beyond, allegiance to country or cause or friend or rank. I mean, if there was going to be one thing that would transcend all that, it would be a religious belief.
But the movie says that he's able to, quote, take their pain away, which, again, maybe Chekhov and Sulu betraying Kirk, maybe that would mean something more if they actually explained what Sybok's doing, but it's kept vague. He takes pain away. Okay, well, how does he do that? Is he hypnotizing them? Is he brainwashing? Like, what's going on exactly? Like, is he just converting them? What is the process here? You know, if you tell me why exactly Chekhov and Sulu are betraying Kirk, okay, I could buy that. But if you don't tell me, I'm just sort of like, well, why? Is anyone doing anything?
I never really, I don't know, when I've watched it, and I've seen it several times, even as an adult, I've never had that thought pop into my head, like, why is this happening? It was always explained adequately for me. I think you're kind of nitpicking.
I don't think I am to expect some sort of clarification about one of the main antagonists' central abilities that, in a lot of ways, propels the plot forward.
Well, okay, so Vulcans have a mind meld ability. They can get inside minds. They can read thoughts. It's not that inconceivable of a leap of logic to say, okay, well, he's able to do that, and he's able to alter it or absorb some of it. He was portrayed as being kind of almost like this renegade Vulcan, in the sense that he was more in touch with the emotional side that the Vulcans shun. So maybe for him, because he didn't shun these emotions, he had this kind of unique ability.
No, that's definitely possible, yes.
And that's kind of like always the way that I've seen it, or maybe, I don't know. That's just always the way I thought about it.
Mm-hmm. But I just don't see, I don't know, I think it's a betrayal of the Sulu and Chekhov characters to not explain why they are betraying their longtime captain. That's never, there is no adequate explanation given. It's not clear, and I think it does a disservice to those two characters, in my opinion, to not make it clear what exactly is going on. Another problem people have with the movie. This is admittedly a nitpick, but you could make the case that all the worst Star Trek movies have singing in them, and this is no exception.
Bad movies, period, have singing in them. Musicals suck.
What the fuck is up with Row, Row, Row Your Boat? Why do we have to have them singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat on a camping trip?
Nitpicking, I don't fucking know. It's just a goddamn scene, Mike. It's just a scene in a movie of some guys doing things at a campfire. I don't know. At least they weren't telling cheesy ghost stories.
Well, let's move on from the campfire, plot-wise. At the end of 3, the original Enterprise blows up.
Yes.
4, they spend the entire movie on board the Klingon bird of prey that they got in the end of 3.
Yes.
At the end of 4, they are given the new Enterprise, which is a refit Constitution class, and it's the Enterprise A.
Yes.
So a big plot of Enterprise of Star Trek V is that the Enterprise A is woefully bugged. It is incomplete. Things don't work. All that stuff.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I understand. New ship, new refit. There's gonna be glitches. It's kind of like World of Warcraft. You're being unrealistic if you think that new expansion launch day is gonna be flawless. You're gonna have glitches. I understand that. But why do you send the broken, glitchy starship out on a mission to rescue 3 ambassadors?
They didn't send the ship. They sent the captain and the crew.
In the broken ship.
Hey, if you send Kirk, you send his ship, and that ship is always going to be the Enterprise, sir.
Take him off the Enterprise for one mission and put him on the Excelsior. One mission.
Admiral James T. Or, I'm sorry, in this case he was Captain. Captain James T. Kirk takes what ship Captain James T. Kirk wants to take. And I don't think...
Even if it's broken and anything.
I don't think, plot-wise, in the movie, okay, if, oh my god, if they actually had, you would be sitting here right now saying, oh my god, they sent him out in a ship that wasn't the Enterprise? That's so out of character for him.
No, because I like the
maybe
Excelsior.
you wouldn't maybe because of that reason, but people would, and it wouldn't feel right. It would be that weird Star Trek movie where Kirk wasn't on the fucking Enterprise, and don't tell me I'm wrong.
Okay, but if that's the case, then make the Enterprise not broken, so it makes so it's fine. Like
Besides, the phrase of a ship's only as good as her crew.
Except when the buttons don't work.
Hey, they blew God up. The buttons worked fine when they had to.
Look, I'm just saying, I think Star Trek V only really works as a movie if you look at it as a criticism of Marxism. Because, okay.
Because Cybok looked like Karl Marx a little bit?
No, not because of that. Okay, so we all know that the Federation is a Marxist utopia. But, let's take a look at what we see in Star Trek V. The maintenance is woefully underfunded and subpar. The Federation's flagship ship is barely functional. And they have to send Kirk and his broken ass ship because it's very likely that the rest of the captains and admirals throughout Starfleet were probably promoted not because of their skills, but because of their loyalty to party doctrine.
Oh. I was going to say the Dilbert principle.
Well, no, it's a Marxist utopia. Everyone who advanced in the military, they were probably good, loyal party members, even if they were incompetent. But Kirk, Kirk's got skill. Kirk's one of the guys who knows what to do. So, even if he's got a broken-ass ganked ship, you gotta send him, because everyone else is an incompetent party zealot. Look, guys.
And you're the one who accuses me of reaching.
I'm just saying, Star Trek V suddenly works if you view it as a critique of Marxism. Think of William Shatner the next time that you discuss George Orwell.
Mind blown. You might actually win this because you caused my brain to fucking wipe just now. I've got BSOD over here. Christ, dude, what the bleeding fuck, man?
1984, Animal Farm.
Star Trek V?
Star Trek V.
One of the great political commentaries of our time?
Yes.
Along with Weekend at Bernie's?
Oh, yeah, no. Weekend at Bernie's. Give me a while. Next week I'll figure out what Weekend at Bernie's is really all about.
That should be like another segment, kind of like the bad movie Public Defender. Like where you draw crazy symbology into movies.
I'm up for it.
I think this could work. I have to think of a
catchy name for it.
Mike makes crazy analogies about movies.
Well, that's creative.
It's catchy. It rolls off the tongue. That's what she said also.
I think I've exhausted, all my arguments about Star Trek V. I'll let you have the, final say on this one. Final defense.
Again, it's not the best movie ever made. It's not even the best in the Star Trek series. But, you know what? I've seen a lot worse movies. I had a good time with it. I think what it does competently. The humor, while it doesn't really add anything, it doesn't detract from it either. The acting is solid, the plot is intriguing, and I like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. As always, it's up to you to decide whether Jack is actually onto something or whether
if Mike is wrong as usual.
But this should do it for episode 43. For Jack, this is Mike, signing off. Also, catch us all on our platforms. I'm not saying it again. Later, guys.
Good on you, sir.